$30 a share just for the streaming and studio unit. So that suggests that right now, what sort of drag the cable side of things, the traditional linear broadcast, really has on the Warner Brothers price tag. So if Ellison was offering 20, was he offering 20 just for the studios and the streamer? Because they priced all of Warner Brothers at 22 to 24, so they gave a very small bit to linear? I don't know.
Renegade Online.
The aspect that people are looking at here is it does make a lot of sense in regards to the relationship that Comcast, NBC, Universal has at present with Warner Brothers already. They're a big lessor of intellectual property. Comcast is from Warner Brothers, namely when it comes to Harry Potter, right? All those theme parks in Universal Studios, in Islands of Adventure, now in Epic Universe, and of course, Universal parks all over the globe, including foreign countries like California. You know, you've got Harry Potter stuff there. And it would make a lot of sense for Comcast to kind of want to get their hands on some of those rights and the library there. And again, Warner Brothers is kind of in a unique position because it is one of the only, if not the only major left. Sony's part of a much larger Japanese conglomerate. That's never going to happen, I don't think. But Warner Brothers is the only major studio left that doesn't also have an over-the-air broadcast television station, which we've talked about many times before. Okay? And what that means is it's one less thing that you have to go through in terms of regulatory oversight in order to get a deal like that put through. You don't have to deal with the Federal Communications Commission. While certainly the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is going to take a very careful look at it because Universal is pretty big and it's part of a larger conglomerate, Comcast, and Warner Brothers is a very large Hollywood studio, just like Paramount is, and they have a number of cable channels of their own. Obviously, they have a huge swath. I think it's the largest number of cable channels in a package that's on cable would come from Warner Brothers Discovery. So, you know, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. Just to give you an idea here, Comcast emerges as Paramount rival in Warner Brothers deal. In a potential $60 billion media shakeup, Comcast could enter the fray to compete with Paramount Skydance to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. And look, you know, the discussion previously last week or Sunday and through into last week as well, obviously, was the bid or the offer that was allegedly made by David Ellison to Warner Brothers for about $20 a share, which wasn't that much of a premium over where it was currently trading at the time, Warner Brothers. And it was rejected. And again, you know, there's a lot to be said out there is you never take the first offer, right? Because the first offer you're going to get from somebody is probably not going to be their best offer. There's also been rumors and stories out there that Netflix might take a swing at it and other people might take a swing at it. Well, here's Comcast. There's rumors swirling that they might take a swing at it. And this is why David Zaslav is probably very content to sit there and let the bidding war go on. Because there probably is one behind the scenes, whether we know it or not. We'll find out one day for sure, as opposed to just rumor and innuendo. The TV cable giant, Comcast, may soon jump into the mix. New York Post reported on Tuesday. Well, there we go. Let's go to the New York Post. Let's go to the source. Paramount facing competition for Warner Brothers Discovery as Comcast could emerge as a suitor. As first reported by the Post, the Paramount Skydance chief David Ellison is in talks with private equity giants, including Apollo Global Management, to join a possible bid to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, a mega deal that could be worth more than $60 billion. Sources say that David Ellison is casting for alternative sources of cash amid doubts whether his dad, Larry Ellison, the second richest person in the world, the man who founded Oracle, is enthusiastic about opening his checkbook for another major media acquisition following the $8 billion Paramount deal. Another big worry for the Ellisons, however, is that Comcast may soon jump into the mix. According to sources close to Paramount Skydance, insiders note that the conglomerate headed by Chairman Brian Roberts is in the middle of breaking out its cable TV properties into a separate company named Versant. Now, I want to remind everybody that specifically one of those, it's not all the cable TV that as far as I remember. There are certain pieces of them. One of the ones that was in there for sure was MSNBC. That's right, PMSNBC was in the mix, right? That was going to be one of the things spun out. And why do you usually spin things out like that? More often than not, although not always, it's because certain segments of your business are a huge financial drag on your books. Bad cash flows. MSNBC certainly would be among those, right? The cost to operate that cable news channel, as most cable news channels, are oftentimes more than they're worth, if not more than they actually generate in revenue overall. Once that spinoff is complete, Comcast will consist of its Peacock streaming service, its Universal theme parks, NBC News, the over-the-air broadcast channel, and Xfinity, a unit that provides internet and cable services. According to sources, Skydance is particularly worried about a possible Comcast bid because Warner Brothers deal-savvy CEO David Zaslav already has a strategic relationship with Comcast's Xfinity to deliver content through the company's internet service and cable pipes. It's unclear which Comcast unit would make the bid, but the cable giant's boss, Roberts, is said to be highly interested in Warner Brothers content as well as its top-ranked studio and HBO Max streaming service, now the number 3 most popular streamer. The feeling inside Skydance is that the most likely bidder will be one of the Comcast companies. A Comcast spokesman had no immediate comment. A Skydance spokeswoman had no comment. The Post has reported that Warner Brothers, which in addition to the number 1 Hollywood studio, owns HBO, and that is the number 1 Hollywood studio this year in 2025, of course, according to the box office receipts, owns HBO and CNN, recently turned to Goldman Sachs bankers to gauge the buyout landscape. Just as David Ellison leaked, he had his eyes on an all-cash bid for the company. And when they say all-cash, that doesn't mean that Ellison is not going to go out there, like they mentioned before, and look for financing partners where there will be debt taken on, okay? When you say an all-cash deal in this case, what you're saying is David Ellison is not interested in buying out Warner Brothers with any existing shares of Paramount Skydance, or PSKY, as it's called now on the ticker symbols for the stock exchange, okay? So we've seen in the past, for example, when certain big deals are made, one of the ones we've talked about a myriad of times here on this channel, the George Lucas deal for Lucasfilm with Disney. There was a lot of cash in there. There was also a lot of stock, Disney stock. So that was not an all-cash deal. There was stock and cash. So when they say here that this is going to be an all-cash deal, it just simply means that we're not going to offer any shares of equity for the buy, right? We just want it straight for cash. Other bidders that David Zaslav and Goldman Sachs have shopped to include Netflix and Amazon. Still, it's unclear when, and some say if, Ellison will make good on his promise to bid on all of Warner Brothers with a massive cash offer. People close to Skydance say he can't competitively rely, he can't completely rely on his father, Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison, who is hesitant to finance the bid for Warner Brothers alone. For cash reasons, David Ellison has to cobble together people for a deal. And this is from Mario Gabelli, who talks about On the Money, which is one of the shows on CNBC, I think. By his calculations, Ellison's Warner Brothers bid could cost even more than $60 billion because of the $30 billion in debt that is on Warner's balance sheet and because Zaslav is shopping the company. There's a lot of moving parts here, Gabelli said, including how much, if anything, Larry Ellison chips in from his own tremendous fortune to help make the numbers work. And I think all of those are excellent points, okay? All of those are excellent points. Now, what it comes down here is, and we said how this deal got rejected last week or allegedly was made and then allegedly was rejected, right? I don't think there was any public statement from either company. These were all behind-the-scenes leaks. Complicating matters further for the Ellisons is Zaslav's own restructuring to separate Warner Brothers into two units, one with his growth business, streaming and studios, and another with the cable channels. And you can see this is a trend that a lot of people are going through. Warner Brothers is doing it. Comcast is doing it, right? He's looking for a price just for the streaming and studio unit of over $30 a share. Woo! Just for the streaming and studio unit. So that suggests that right now, what sort of drag the cable side of things, the traditional linear broadcast, really has on the Warner Brothers price tag. Okay? That's a significant premium to the $22 to $24 per share leaked price tag the Ellisons leaked for all of Warner Brothers. So it kind of makes me wonder, so if Ellison was offering 20, was he offering 20 just for the studios and the streamer? Because they priced all of Warner Brothers at 22 to 24, so they gave a very small bit to linear? I don't know. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about here in terms of putting this in perspective, right? That's what we do. This is where Warner Brothers is at currently. So I want you to put this in perspective. Right now, Warner Brothers Discovery is trading at the close of the New York Stock Exchange today, Wednesday, October 15, $18.45. Aftermarket popped up a little bit, another 20 cents, another 1%. Last week, Ellison allegedly came in with a roughly $20 per share offer. Last week, watch, when that happened, back here, it was down around 17. So look at what's happened since that offer came in. See, what's happening is investors are out there going, oh, well, I mean, if somebody comes in and drops, if they're saying it's going to be worth over 20 a share, guess what naturally starts happening to the stock price? Starts moving up. Starts moving up because the thought process is, well, if somebody's going to come in and pay, if I can go buy it right now for $17.50 a share, and somebody maybe might come in, according to rumors swirling around publicly, that somebody's going to pay 20 or more, well, then maybe I'll go pick some up at 17 and sit and wait and see what happens. Because if an offer gets made next week for $25 a share, that's a nice little return in a very short period of time. Now, there's no financial advice here, and I'm not trying to suggest in any way, shape, or form that anybody go out and buy Warner Brothers stock, right? You figure out what you need to do with your own finances. That's not what this show is about. I'm trying to give you a little bit of an education here on partially some of the reason that this is going on right now with Warner Brothers stock price. There's going to be some upward pressure right now as a bidding war continues to heat. And Zaslav is not a stupid guy, right? And this is why he doesn't take the first offer on the table. Hey, if you think it's 20, well, guess what's going to happen to the stock price? It's going to push up. And then it's actually going to be $20 to $22 a share. Maybe, right? And then the next bid would have to be maybe 25 or 26 and so on and so forth. So eventually somebody's going to have to come in with a hot enough bid and really pay what Zaslav would be considering a fair market value. And then eventually, of course, it's not just up to him. Zaslav and the board would initially have to agree to an offer, and then it would have to be put to the shareholders for confirmation, right? The shareholders would have to vote to approve something like that. So, and again, the likelihood would be that, let's put it this way, the controlling conglomerate of shareholders, of course, are the institutionals out there, the big investment banks, the mutual fund companies, right? They have voting proxy over a huge number of shares for Warner Brothers. So you can rest assured that conversations before any agreement is made will be had between the board of Warner Brothers and those investment firms. Say, hey, look, the board and I, David Zaslav, want to take this $30 bid, $25 bid, whatever the hell bid. You guys are going to go along with this, yes or no? If they tell them no, then they'll probably wind up rejecting it because why waste the time? If they tell them yes, game on. And that's what will happen. So be watching this. And there is a Warner Brothers earnings call right here on November the 6th. Now, if plans hold true, as we always do here, we are in earnings season. And beginning, I believe, next week, we will kick off. The entertainment sector will kind of start rolling out on Wall Street. We'll have Netflix. We'll have Warner Brothers a few weeks later. We'll have Comcast. We'll have Paramount. We will have AMC theaters, and of course, Disney will be the last one. I think Disney's is November 13th. So stay tuned. But again, all of these players that are in line to bid, there are probably going to be some questions somewhere in there, unless, of course, they're asked, please don't ask us questions about this right now, which is very possible.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.